Hi everyone, welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, part of our incremental language development series. And we have a number of topics for today. Short and elided strings.
Yeah, so this partly came about Roman had a question about, why doesn't short a string do what I think it should?
Hey,
And
I've
the
got a
answer,
comment about short.
Mhm.
It's still using the same ASCII form on even in notebooks as it did in 1988. This is not correct. So if I do something like, short of range of 1,000, see that thing? That thing is a 1988 style object. Am I making sense?
Rather than something that's more decorated because short is a wrapper that has typesetting, but under the
Yeah,
hood
right.
it's
So this
still
should be
Mhm.
something, I think that should be a
It,
thing that has a mouse over, that has some kind of, I don't know what, but it should be designed as opposed to just something in ASCII. Am I making sense? And in a perfect world,
well, technically, that's not ASCII, right?
okay,
Those
I
DMAs are
understand. All right,
Unicode,
okay,
but
Unicode,
Yeah.
a
and
string.
you're looking at 95 era code, not 1988 era code.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
That's
Okay,
so
it's
would
code
the
that's younger than more of the people at the company.
yeah,
The
would the idea to be sort of like our iconized form or
yes.
our not stored in
Look, in a
okay.
perfect world, you'd be able to click that. First of all, it could contain more information about it could have a mouse over that contains more information about what was shorted,
Right, like the
possibly.
output size limiter does, where you get the
Right.
short form and
But
then
but basically, in a perfect world, that would be something that's an icon type thing where you can just press it and it splurts out more of the expression.
like you could do the same thing and say short, comma 3, and it gives you more
Yeah,
info. You could have the same sort
Exactly.
of page for
Yes.
more.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that's technically
yeah.
doable. I don't know whether it has enough information to do that. I also think this is an example of one of the things that won't save correctly. In other words, if I take that, right,
hmm
if I take that and I do this and I say length of this, I'll get, oh, wow,
Mm.
I get a syntax error. That's actually better than it might be, even if it doesn't indicate what the error actually is. Huh.
Interesting.
Right.
Why doesn't that error indicate? Why doesn't something, I mean, if that's going to happen, why doesn't this indicate as a matter of syntax coloring that there's a problem there? I mean, I would consider that an acceptable result if it had you know, if it indicated with some reddening or something.
Short answer is I'm not sure.
Yeah.
This may be the sort of thing of like the box parser can't detect it. I'll need to discuss with John.
Okay. But in general, the modernization of short seems like a worthwhile thing. And I mean, it's not unrelated to the code folding stuff that I think John is working on
Hmm.
and
I
perhaps
mean,
should
I
be
will
merged.
say actually storing, the expression there is sort of defeating how
Yeah, it
short
defeats
it's
the
used in
point.
all sorts of places, which is to, make something that's small in the notebook.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't want to do that.
Right.
But just like with percent modernization, and maybe this is something Jason Harris could be pulled into. With percent modernization, we have mechanisms. We have a good set of mechanisms for dealing with, oh, can you recover it? Do you see what I'm saying? Right. In percent modernization, it offers you these choices, oh, you can use this and that to try to recover the expression. Am I making
Right.
sense?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
it's in memory or it's, etc. Or it offers you the choice of rerunning the input, blah, blah, blah. That's probably what we should do here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the specific issue that you're raising here about strings.
Yeah, so the specific issue is that short on, particularly on long strings, is not super predictable. In some cases, like that first example data input, it does more or less what you would expect it to do. But in other cases, it will do things like just elide all of the content. So we
Well,
have,
so that's just wrong. So it's probably just a bug that's been there since 1988.
Right. And I
And I
think there's
think I wrote the original code for short, so I'm responsible.
Right, but not the code for short in a notebook, which is completely separate.
Oh, is that
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Was
so
written by Tom.
yeah,
Okay.
the terminal also behaves a little differently here because it has its own
Okay. Well,
version of short.
so we just got bugs. I mean, I'm not sure that, but I do think that what we should do is in a string elision, or for that matter, I mean, I think this should be typeset, okay, with a different color and things like this to indicate. So if you're just glancing at the expression, it's not like, oh, it was a short output. It's like, no, it's got an elision in it.
Yeah.
So I'm
And I
saying, and
think
for a string, I mean, this can be typeset. It doesn't need to be a string, except in the terminal case.
right. Yeah. And I think that's sort of where there are the two use cases. There's the use case of I want something like short that is a wrapper that takes this long string, gives me a reasonable condensed version and some indicator that's eliding content. And
Yep,
then there is the snippet path, which is trim the string to some preset length or some
exactly. Yes, I think
and
that's right. And make it a string
yeah,
at the in the result.
right. Snippet returns a string.
Right. But
One
short does not.
yeah, short
Short
does
returns a
not. Short is a
typeset
wrapper.
construct.
So one thing I saw in looking at this is that I realized that snippet is still marked as experimental and has been for about a decade. It was kind of in our first flock of experimental functions. I believe that is primarily because the second argument is a little non-standard.
What is it?
Well, there's various options for it.
It's like sentence and things like that. Let me say that snippet has a new life
Mhm.
because of LLM, RAG generation and so on.
Right.
And I don't think this is the moment to de-experimentalize it. I think rather this is the moment to look at what should we be doing with because when you use, create vector database, create semantic search index and so on, that's using snippet, I believe. Am I making sense?
Yeah, I know it is used in a number of places. I know there's a couple of different things that are there are reasons why it's experimental. It has things like an assumed page width and it's returning lines rather than
Right. So
characters.
what we need to do is look at for the use case of vector databases, what
Hmm.
exactly do we need from snippet?
Okay, and then look at refining the design.
Yes.
Okay,
I
that's
think we can get that now. I mean, I think, and it
mhm.
might need some kind of little, machine learning thing to decide where the breaks are and so on.
Okay.
So I'm saying, I bet there's a way of there may be a version of snippet that kind of takes the dead space out of something, and that requires understanding what the thing is, if you get what I'm saying. Right? Like in other words, I could imagine that I don't know whether snippet does a good job of removing what are obviously punctuation marks, new lines, dash, dash, dash to separate things off, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think in the base use case, it's pretty much just looking at a linear string without doing
I
any
agree.
content trimming. But yeah, I
I
think
agree. But
for
I think what we're going to need for vector databases is something which has some content awareness. And
mhm.
let's figure that out.
Okay, yeah, we'll do an inventory on that. I have a secondary project I'm working on that isn't quite ready to look over is just inventorying what we have that's experimental. We have
Yeah,
almost
that's a
a
good idea.
thousand symbols that are
Oh my God.
experimental and
Well, that sounds wrong. I mean, uh, yeah, I mean, I think de-experimentalization is not a process that we've developed well.
mhm, yeah. So that's something that we will circle back to. I guess yeah, it's
Okay.
925 that are marked as
Wow.
experimental, but some of them
Okay.
are larger sets of functions.
Right. I
This
mean, I
is
think,
oh yeah, go
one
ahead.
thing is it's sort of in the blockchainy type way. If the thing was experimental, but then a ton of things depend on it, it
Mm,
can't really be experimental anymore.
right.
Unless we make the decision to, pull the band-aid off and make a change.
Hmm.
And, we need to think about that before we de-experimentalize. If there is something where we're going to regret it in 10 years or something like that, um, uh, the, okay.
Yeah, I think it makes
Um,
sense to look at some of the older functions first and see, are these reasonably stable? Why did we leave it experimental
yeah,
and
right.
refine it? The things we just added in 14.1, we'll circle back to eventually, but they stayed experimental and they're unlikely to have changed a bunch. So, And speaking
I'm
of
not a
things,
big
okay,
fan of minimal because, if it's ABC, what's the minimal of ABC?
right. And minimal is really, you know, first of sort is how
Yeah,
we've
which is
effectively
something that I
replaced.
find very useful.
Right. I think it would be kind of nice to reflect in the name that this is related to ordering, but we have take largest and take smallest also. Uh,
Right, but those
uh,
do tend to be numerical, right? I mean,
yeah,
I use them
They
primarily
they
numerically.
default to ordering when they're not numerical.
Okay. But I think in the vast majority of cases, it's okay.
I hope so.
But in this version, they take an ordering function. So they have been extended to cover this case.
Okay, I understand. But minimal, I mean, I like the idea of first of sort because I use it all the time.
hmm
Uh, I mean, I wonder whether we should just call it first sort. It's a little bit weird. It's like, first dog or something. I don't know.
I mean, I think by analogy with select first, it should be sort first, although that
sorted
sounds maybe
first.
worse.
Yeah.
Sort first doesn't make sense. I mean, select first, select you expect to get. Um, what should we do here? I just don't like minimal because I just don't think, if I'm thinking of the sort order, which is, I mean, a million times I'm sorting lists, I'm sorting this. I mean, I do this all the time, first of sort.
hmm
Um,
Right, but minimal just means you have a partial order.
I know, but it doesn't to people, if you hear the word, you think of numbers.
Yeah.
You think of partial orders, but only 0.00001% of the population would think of that, or even
Yeah.
another zero.
Yeah, there's the symmetry with minimal by and maximal by, but obviously
I know.
it's different. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of something that is related to ordering, first ordering, but it's not really first ordering. It's ordered first,
I like that. I like ordered first.
Yeah, ordered
ordered
first.
first, ordered
Except
last.
ordered first suggests it's a passive voice thing.
Yeah,
It
it's
suggests
not
it's sort of a
quite right.
wrapper.
Uh-huh.
Let me think.
And first order is like a Boy Scout rank.
What's wrong with first in order?
First in order.
What about smallest and largest?
It would align up with take largest and take smallest.
Smallest element? Smallest, largest. I think smallest and largest are a little better than minimal and maximal.
I was
Minimal and
wondering,
maximal sound, but the smallest doesn't make sense because, you've got lists.
what about initial and ultimate?
No way.
No.
Incomprehensible. I mean, because that suggests time.
Yeah, it's true.
But then we could get the ultimate ratio of fluxions.
What?
You don't know that Newton named the derivative the ultimate ratio of fluxions?
No, I didn't know that. I did not
Yes.
know that. That's a good thing to know. It's something that's not survived the last 3 centuries. We need a name here. The concept is good. We just need a name. I think getting first in there is nice because this is kind of like it's like first ordered, but that's not right either. Getting first is kind of a get me the first element.
Mhm.
Okay, this would be a correct name, but it's clunky. First by ordering. Last by ordering. That
Yeah,
name,
the
it will be easy to
first in
understand what it means.
order.
What's that? Say it again.
First in order has essentially the same meaning, but it's shorter by a bit.
First in order seems too. What about, okay, I got a hack. What about first by a list, and then there's a criterion, but you can drop the criterion?
I thought these weren't by functions.
Say that again?
I thought these were, the point was that these were not by functions.
Well,
No,
it
but
could be
they
the default case is what
would
we're
not
hearing.
need a by. But the non-default case, this would be first by, and what's the second argument of that? That would be a
Right,
I mean,
but the by functions don't take, right? They take,
no, they don't take a criterion. They take a function f to be applied to the list, but that's a useful thing. First by, if I say,
right, but then
But-
it's maximal by. You've just recreated maximal by and minimal by.
I see. Well, do maximal by and minimal by, they probably have a they probably have an operator form, right, which is the f.
Yeah.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So is this just maximal by with identity as the second argument? Is that equivalent?
Yes.
Yes. Right, but I mean, right, the
It's a
suggestion
clunky way to
that
write
we
it,
take
yeah.
in, right, that this function takes an ordering, not a by, right? Right, the P there is an order and could be
Which
numerical.
one hates typically? I mean, that's typically not. I mean, I would argue that first by is actually a better name for minimal and by.
You're saying that first by is a better name than what?
The minimal by. I don't know. I could argue both ways.
Yeah.
I think it's not obviously wrong. First by, I mean, minimal by strongly suggests that it's a numerical order as opposed to a general object. Let's see. It's not very good. That's terrible. I mean, it's like first sorted. It's like, is it all sorted now? In the, you know, in the no worries.
Hmm.
First in sort, did we suggest that already?
Yeah, I think it's clunky. Bob on the live stream has suggested sorted first. Yeah, we had that there. Let's see.
I have to say, well, I won't claim to absolutely love it, but of the things I see there, I think sorted first is the thing that
Yeah.
seems
See,
best.
but that's too passive.
Mhm.
See, it's like the ED functions usually are things where something has happened to them and now they are in that state,
Mhm.
rather than they make it happen now. I really don't like minimal and maximal. I mean, every time I look at them, I think numbers. Look, what about first ordered? That's got an ED, hasn't it? I mean, remember the length of the thing isn't so important because it's autocomplete all the way.
Yeah, I guess I could see a case where you start typing first on a list and auto-completing to first and first by ordering. You're going to want to choose either one of them half of the time, or maybe not half the time, but it's potentially useful to have them closely related.
And I think then it's very, very clear, right? I mean, whatever faults this name may have, it's very clear, right? It's
Yes.
not a by function, even though it has by in the name. It's an ordering type function, and it's the first by the order, and we assume obviously the default ordering is order.
Yes.
You can specify any other ordering function you want.
All right. First by ordering, last by ordering seem like the right thing.
And I'm guessing we don't need a first and last by ordering.
Oh, I think we should have a last by ordering.
I mean a single function that is first and last by ordering. A min-max,
first,
as
last?
it were. Yeah, first, last by ordering.
I think we should consider that later.
Okay, yeah, we'll skip it for the
think-
initial version. All right, as an
Okay.
optional, yep.
I mean,
second
also,
argument is
presumably,
second
first by
argument.
ordering is more efficient than first of sort. Certainly
Yeah.
better be.
It should be, yeah. Because we're not bothering to return the objects. We just need to know the canonical
right.
order of them. So, yeah.
Good. Okay.
Right.
That is a function that I use all the time. I mean, it might be worth analyzing at some point code, like even code of mine, that, for these diagrams of f of g. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, another thing that I'm often doing is something like, well, this is a very common thing. I don't think this is obvious, has an obvious naming.
Right. I want a representative.
Yeah, the first element and the length of a split or something, or something like, split. I don't know why I always type splot. Anyway, sorted by blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
That's a really common. What am I really doing there?
Getting like a snapshot of the data, right?
Well, I've got data which is in equivalence classes, and I want to get often this. I mean, it can just be, sometimes it's just split of sort. So in other words, there, it's a bunch of identical data. Like I might have, let's do this, random integer 10, 200, okay? And now let's say this thing, which is, I mean, I guess this is tantamount to split of sort there is that, but that is very much like count by, isn't it? No, what is this? This is counts of %3. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
it's basically
ordered.
Counts there. Although the difference here is, no, that's okay. The difference here is if they are identical elements, then counts just works. Oh yeah. The issue would be, I see, counts by is what I could be using. All right, okay. Let's move on. I think there's nothing to say there.
Yep. This next section is just finishing up the inventory of general utilities. We talked about what functions are used in code. This is kind of an inventory of the ones that were deemed useful enough to move to WFR, but not into system. To association is basically a variant of association that recursively applies to all values, which are lists.
Okay. I think that deserves to be in WFR.
Yeah, I think,
but things that have moved from general utilities to WFR, I don't have a problem with. It's things that are still hanging out there that are not even a WFR.
Yep.
So which of those?
That would be the last section here.
Oh God, that's 450 of them. Okay,
I don't have them all listed here. Danny and I have gone through the 450 there. There's a handful of functions here that I think, as they are, bear some investigation. The others are kind of topics to talk about. So I don't like the name A/B timing, but it's a common operation. I have two versions of a function or two related functions. I want to know how fast they are relative to each other. So I've got a random set of
how
data.
Much? I see. And what do? They take the ratio of those times?
Yes, it's the ratio of, I believe, the repeated timings. So linear model fit of
repeated
this data.
timing ratio. What's wrong with that?
Nothing's wrong with it. A/B testing is a term of art, though.
I know, but this isn't necessarily the ratio.
Yes,
so you can have
correct.
A/B testing in the keywords.
Yeah, it should be a keyword for sure.
I suggest repeated timing ratio. It's clear what it is.
It would always be two arguments, or I mean, I don't know that the var_args case is super intuitive. What the result?
Don't do two. Don't do var_arg.
var_args. Okay.
Should it be tied to repeated timing? For example, echo timing, you can use the method option to specify your own timing if you want absolute timing or timing. Repeated timing.
I think we could just call it timing ratio, and then it could. Yeah, I think that's reasonable to call it timing ratio. Have a method option.
Default to repeated, but you could specify absolute or Okay. That seems reasonable.
Might want to default to absolute. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Jose, do you have a strong opinion on default timing method? I guess echo timing uses absolute timing by default.
Exactly. I was thinking of the default of echo timing.
Okay.
I think it should.
We'll do that for consistency.
Okay, partition by.
Yeah. So
what is this doing?
It's taking a criteria and partitioning by the subsegment.
Wasn't that split
Isn't
by?
it split by?
Yeah. This is more split. Yeah.
Wasn't it identical to split by?
Yeah. I don't understand.
That one may have escaped us, Nick.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. I think it's just, post set sort. What does that mean?
So it's a version of topological sort. I didn't stick the example in there. Sorry. Basically, a different sorting method. I mean, a specific topological sort. I don't know. Danny was interested in the class of topological sort.
Well, let me make the point that evaluation orders need these kinds of sortings. Right. Let me give you an example. Okay. It says pulling up. Let's see if I can find it. I think we have better examples.
I don't think this post set sort is actually used anywhere.
Okay. Well, look, this is the issue. Okay. There is a sorting criterion, just like we now have traversal orders, right? This is for lists. I mean, this is not a completely stupid thing for us to have. And maybe we already have a WFR for this. Maybe the click to copy of this is already a WFR. Not a good sign.
Traversal order select.
Oh, traversal order select. Okay, that's a particularly obscure thing to call it, but what that is, you see what that is. I mean, that may be just the wrong name for this, but it's different criteria for sorting lists of different lengths. Is that making sense to people?
So can we represent all these ordering methods in the second argument of sort?
I doubt it.
My opinion on that, I looked into this a little bit when I worked on tree traversal order, is that in order to break things down as finely as having leftmost, rightmost, innermost, outermost, we would need weaker versions of some of our ordering functions that don't do tie breaking, and then have some kind of way of chaining multiple ordering functions conveniently. So if this first comparison is a tie, fall through to the second one.
I see. So leftmost and then outermost, and then because
Or-
those are
yeah.
are they listed in the order of tie breaking? They are, I think.
Like I think I don't remember the details. I think that like we have lexicographic order, but I think that one of these is something like more like I think I was calling it lex order, where there's not a tiebreaker. I'd have to re-earth those details.
I think it would be worth somebody at some point, maybe it's a good summer school project or something, trying to make a systematic, some systematic approach to all of these things. I'm not sure that I think I understand, like the leftmost, outermost, etc. That works okay if gosh, I mean, I guess that works for any tree, right? But does it work for
Yeah.
but for a list that has a bunch of elements at the same level, aren't there other criteria?
Well,
Right,
what you're sorting here is lists of position specifications.
I know, but the thing is,
The
but I could
leftmost
think of that as a
and
pure
innermost, like those care about the fact that they're position specifications.
right. But I could equally well be talking about pure sorting of lists of different lengths.
Mm.
Right? So without thinking of them as position specs.
Yes.
So it might be worthwhile. I think it's a good summer school project to try and inventory all of those kinds of things for lists of different lengths. Or, I think we should, because it would be kind of interesting to have string arguments. Second argument of sort could be a string that does something. Does that work right now if I say sort and then numeric, for example, in the second argument?
You would have to say numerical order.
You have to give an ordering.
Okay, but if I say quotes numerical ordering here.
Not quotes. It's
Order.
just
No,
it's a symbol.
It's a symbol.
I see. So, but I mean, we could.
And we have numerical sort, which is equivalent to that.
I understand. But what I'm saying is we could imagine a richer language of second arguments of sort because we're not going to conflict. I mean, I think after we developed sort, we started using this idea of string arguments to be, to stand in for functions.
Right. So the current situation is that the numerical function is a binary function, only looks at elements. It doesn't worry about positions. So I see the generalization you are looking for.
Right. Ethan on our live stream is commenting, please add check return to the system from WFR. What does check return do?
I don't know, but based on the name, I would presume it calls return if the check fails.
Why does it take so long to find a resource here?
I'm
What is
guessing
it
it's
doing?
the first resource function evaluation is doing a little extra heavy lifting, but
Oh, so this isn't a way to get your money back.
Okay.
How disappointing.
The
so it's just a variant of check.
hold on. Why is it not immediately returns a failure expression?
Isn't this just
Check
confirmed?
continues evaluating. If there's a message,
Right.
it doesn't abort.
well, isn't this just confirm quiet? Oh, I guess
Yes, it
confirm,
probably
confirm,
predates
I guess
confirm
throws
quiet.
a thing.
Yes. I think this came first, but I think it's enclose and confirm quiet.
Right. So the way one would do that now is enclose confirm quiet. And is that better?
I
I mean, the
think
problem is
no,
if you
I think
return
so
a
because
failure, yeah, what are you going to do with it? I think this is better. I mean, if I have confirm quiet on its own without the enclose, that's not terrible. I mean, that means you didn't handle an error,
Mhm.
which is kind of something you kind of might want to know.
Yeah, it's certainly more robust for a larger scope to.
The only question is whether return in a function is useful. Right? In other words, if you put, I mean, that's an interesting idea. If I say f of, f of x is, and let's use this check return 1 over x here, then what that's going to do, if I say f of 1, it'll give 1. What?
Mhm.
Huh? Check return returns the evaluation of x bar. Check return of x bar. What is going on here? I don't understand that. It looks like a bug.
It does.
Well, it's just nonsense.
It's doing the same thing for me, so I think it's something with the.
So that, to me, is, I mean, that would be a useful piece of functionality if you can get out of your existing function, if return really did the right thing. I mean, that to me seems useful. Right? You've got a function definition, and if anything goes wrong inside that function, don't necessarily show the error,
Mm-hmm.
but just return out of the function failed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, resource check return isn't working for me either on its own. So
Or maybe there's a
I don't know
problem
if
with.
that's a 14.2 bug or a check return bug, but
Okay, well, it should be
A
looked at.
two argument form seems to work, but the one argument
Okay,
doesn't.
Yeah.
so let's look at it.
Yeah, I think it's
We'll
check return.
investigate offline.
I mean, that should have been caught by automated testing on the WFR examples, and we should learn why it wasn't caught that way. See what I'm
all
saying?
right.
Yes.
Before we go on to the next thing, can I just suggest we remove poset sort and partition but and see if anybody actually notices? Because as far as I can tell, those functions aren't actually used in any of our code.
Fine. I mean, we could also put them in there with a great big message that says this is being obsoleted.
Right, but if it's hidden inside of general utilities
Then it's hopeless
and it's
anyway.
not used, then what's the point? Let's
Right,
just shrink
fine.
general utilities.
Well, be nice to get rid of general utilities and basically
Right,
outlaw
and yes,
its
and the
use.
first step to doing that is shrinking it.
Okay, if you think that's the right approach, as opposed to just spraying obsolete messages whenever those things get used.
Well, I mean, right, but that right, they're used by, say, the resource function version. So we can't just make them,
But presumably the code is not, it doesn't use the general utilities context. It just copies the code into the resource function. I hope.
I wouldn't believe that.
Well, I
Probably
should do that.
function
We
by
should get
function.
rid of the actual general utilities context, or we'll never be able to stamp it out.
Right, but then the internal uses can't use it.
Well, we really ultimately don't want them to, I think.
Well, you won't necessarily get disagreement from me on that point, other than the fact that,
It's a hill we do not need to climb right now.
yes.
Yeah,
Fine.
I think the longer roadmap is if it's useful in general utilities, we'll have it somewhere, and if it's not useful, then we shouldn't be using it. And the exact path there is to be determined, but
Right. And if we find things that aren't used at all or don't seem to be used, then just removing them is a good first step in reducing our later work.
Fair enough.
okay.
Okay.
If I remember correctly, for the general utilities things in the function repository, it copied just the definitions of the symbol itself, but not dependencies all the way down. So the dependencies still use general utilities.
Ugh.
maybe something we can inventory. at
Otherwise,
some
we'd
point.
have, you know,
Yeah, I know.
a million
Many
copies of each
copies.
dependency. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's just two more things and then we wrap for today.
Huh.
Quoted string.
Yeah, this is something I see people do sometimes. I don't like the quoted string implementation, which is just prepends and appends an escaped quote character to the string. There's a
What's wrong with
modify.
that?
I don't know that it's doing what someone actually wants all the time. I mean, it's just string join with a string character.
Yeah. Why are they doing it?
Yeah. It
Why are they doing it?
depends.
Because they want to strip, because they're going to strip some level of stuff. They're going to do a to expression or something on it.
That's often what I see, or just, this isn't showing up as a string and I expect it to in output. And that's what
It's because you want to sometimes show string characters for some inputs, but you don't want to have to enable that globally.
Yeah. So there's a function repository version called show quotes, which uses a style wrapper to do that rather than modifying the underlying string.
Which I think is the correct thing to do.
Yeah.
Sorry, say that again. What?
So
Just use a style wrapper with show string characters goes to true, and then you will see the quotes of the string.
You're not actually putting them there or changing the string to.
Right.
It's the difference between these two examples in this section of quoted string modifies the underlying string by appending and prepending string escaped quotes, where show quotes is wrapping it in a style that shows string characters.
I think that's
Well, wait.
The reason I do this.
Aren't you using one as the first one as a convenience, and the other for some string that already has those quotes added?
No, there are no quotes in that one.
Show quotes here is just a display thing. Quoted string is a utility for string manipulation.
Right.
The
You're
case
adding quotes.
The case where I use it is I have
Yes,
some string
but-
result and I want to put it in a message like in LLM synthesize or in a and I want to set it off to say, this is a literal quote
Right.
from some operation.
Right.
Tell me about
that
it.
seems useful.
Right. That's why I
think that's the wrong thing to do. I think you should wrap it in style and show string characters.
But how do you get those string quote characters into the string to begin with?
You don't need them, Danny, for the 5th time.
But
if you have a long string, Itai, if you have a long string and inside it has a couple of quotations, you will see those quotes no matter what.
You will see them no matter what.
This is a way of actually putting them there without using backslashes or whatever.
No, that's just wrong.
All
this does is add and quotes to the beginning and ending of the string.
And then you do a bunch of string joins and you've created your string with internal quoted substrings.
Or you could just use row and put a style wrapper around your string that you want to be.
My point is creating one big string that's serialized and capable of being sent to an LLM is a very useful thing. And it avoids rows and style boxes and things where you don't trust that it's going to be simply serialized.
All right. Well, I guess my response is if you have specific use cases where that's useful, then just add the damn quotes yourself.
Yeah. I'm very sympathetic to the argument that this is trivial and who cares? Everyone knows how to do it.
Okay, I need to run off in a second here, but real digit string.
Yeah, I'm still digging into this one.
This one might be
string.
Yeah, I understand, but I suspect this is dealing with the star wedge versus E versus whatever else.
It could.
That's what I would look at.
Okay. Yeah, this is kind of one of those. Probably should have been under the second segment, but something to dig into what's there and why it's there. And
yeah, I'm sure that's what it is. I'm sure it's precision, because toString will pick up backticks and all kinds of weird stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this is probably a version of toString that doesn't do that.
Yeah,
which is more like text string.
Mm-hmm.
Which is possibly what this should be, and this might have been a precursor. Okay, we should wrap it up here. Thanks all.
Right.
Okay, see you all soon.
All right.